Hello everyone, my name is Aras and today I'm going to talk about Rwandan genocide and reconciliation programs by Rwandan government after the genocide. So the news that I've taken is from iwgia.org. It's 2021 news. A nation without ethnicity, the Rwandan reconciliation model. So we know that the devastating genocide against the Tutsi claimed the lives of more than 800,000 Tutsi, moderate Hutu, and Twa people in Rwanda in 1994. It was a very huge genocide. And since then, the post-genocide government of Rwanda has applied some unique strategies of nation rebuilding and reconciliation programs that we're going to discuss in a second. This slide says not consociationalism, which is discussed in Haddad's reading. And I'm going to explain in a second why it's not consociationalism. Associationalism refers to a fragmented but stable political system where the elites undertake institutional and procedural measures to maintain communal stability, and these measures are presumed to provide equitable representation for all groups. And Arendt identifies this as fragmented but stable political democracies that seek to elide the problem of majority rule altogether by requiring the inclusion of all groups in government, basically meaning that this concept is about giving representation to all ethnic groups. And as we can see in the picture, it's there's like a logo, NDI, Umun, Rwanda. Basically, this is exactly the opposite of consociationalism, because in Rwanda, instead, it was taking away power from ethnic groups instead of representing and giving equal representation to ethnic groups. It was taking away these ethnic identities and instead replacing them with one national identity, which that word in Rwandan means I am Rwandan. So basically replacing it with Rwandan identity. So basically, as the news says, ethnic identification in contemporary Rwandan society it's prohibited. We can see it in re-education. The people in Rwanda are taught that Hutu, Tutsi, and Twa ethnicity was imposed by Belgian colonials who sought to divide a previously harmonious Rwanda, which was stratified not by ethnicity, but by socioeconomic status and wealth in cows. And basically reshaping and rewriting history in a way re-educating people that this is simply a different story. And laws against ethnic divisionism were passed in 2001 and are enshrined in the 2003 Constitution through various articles outlawing forms of discrimination and divisionism. So basically, identifying as your ethnic identity is simply not the case in Rwanda anymore. In terms of truth and reconciliation, the Twas, the historically marginalized people. So we know that we have established that truth is being rewritten and adjusted in Rwanda because they're like rejecting ethnic identities and re-educating people that those identities are artificially made by Belgian colonies. And for Rwanda's indigenous Twa community, numbering around 30,000, which is very like minuscule number compared to other communities, so that's why it's considered as a minority group. This means that they cannot legally or publicly identify as Twa. They live in ethnically isolated villages as pottery makers or day laborers with limited access to basic needs. So they're basically very poor. They have the biggest unemployment rates, they have a poor education, they have poor access to basic needs. have faced generations of ethnic stigma, discrimination, extreme poverty, and now an inability to articulate or receive help for their unique needs and challenges. Because they are not recognized anymore as their ethnic identity, they cannot claim or ask for help, as referring to historical injustices, historical tragedies. This is important because compared to Tutsis, who were also killed and suffered in the genocide, Twas also were killed, right? Because around like 10,000, approximately 10,000 Twas were killed in the genocide, and still to this day suffer from those consequences in living in bad conditions. The problem is that only Tutsis are officially recognized as genocide survivors. And that's why Twas are not allowed to participate in reconciliation efforts, and they're basically do not have access to these reconciliation programs. For example, in Uganda re-education camps, that's traditional courts, and they're not eligible for any survivors benefits, which makes it very very bad, considering their current already bad situation. So truth and reconciliation in Gibson's article is, the hypothesis is characterized as the truth and reconciliation process is based on the hypothesis that knowledge of the past will lead to acceptance, tolerance, and reconciliation in the future. Is it the case in Rwanda? By trying to apply this knowledge, by trying to apply this hypothesis, we can see that it's actually inapplicable, right? In a sense, because there is not a presence of truth, but it's actually the absence of truth for Twa people in Rwanda. And the absence of truth for Twa people makes them unable to access this reconciliation, acceptance, and tolerance, because as we can see, NGOs dedicated to the Twa have faced legal trouble when trying to advocate on behalf of this community, because targeting one ethnic group is considered divisionism. So they're not really able to legally seek for help, and lack of disaggregated data renders invisible many of the struggles faced by Twa people in Rwanda, and makes it difficult to prove cases of discrimination or highlight the unique challenges this community faces. Basically, not officially recognizing them as genocide survivors means that the information regarding these people is disaggregated, and that enables certain discrimination cases to slide through unrecognized. And this basically means that this basically leads us to a question of what would the world in Rwanda and for Twa people be if the circumstances were different, if instead of hiding the truth and rewriting the history and re-educating people, what if the government actually gave pass to the truth, and Twa people could identify themselves as Twa people and seek for help? So the questions that arose for me, and I want us to discuss in the lesson, is why only Tutsis are recognized as genocide survivors? Are Twas neglected because they're minority, or maybe there are other factors that you can think of? So would the reconciliation process be better if people knew the truth instead of having their ethnic identities outlawed and having history rewritten? And lastly, assuming that these flaws are not recognizing minority groups as survivors are dealt with, do you think Rwandan government's approach of uniting people with one national identity is a good, or even like considered a better strategy for reconciliation as compared to other strategies that we've read, such as nationalism that I cannot spell? Thank you.